Hey everyone, welcome back. Ready for another deep dive?
Absolutely. Let's get into it.
Today we're tackling something that I think we can all relate to, especially with the holidays coming up.
Uh-oh, do I sense a New Year's resolution pep talk coming?
Maybe just a little. But seriously, we're talking about that sneaky little word later and how it can really trip us up when it comes to reaching our goals.
Ah, yes, later. The ultimate procrastination destination.
Exactly. And we're pulling some wisdom from the Spiz, a newsletter by Twisty, a chiropractor who's become this kind of guru for practice growth.
Now, I'm not a chiropractor, but I'm intrigued.
Right. But honestly, this stuff applies to pretty much anyone in any field. Twisty makes this really powerful point right off the bat. Later often just means never.
Oof, that hits close to home.
Right. And he has this killer line, the road to someday is piled high with empty promises.
I can practically see the mountain of unfinished projects and abandoned hobbies.
And think about all the things we tell ourselves we'll do later. Spending more time with family, finally starting that business, taking care of our health. It's like later becomes this catch-all excuse for not living our best lives right now.
It's so true. And the thing is, it's not just about being lazy or lacking willpower. There are often deeper psychological barriers at play.
Okay, like what?
Well, fear of failure is a huge one. We tell ourselves we'll do something later when we feel more prepared, more confident, but often that's just a way to avoid the possibility of messing up, of not being perfect.
Oh, I'm definitely guilty of that. Putting off things because I'm scared of not doing them well enough.
Right. It's like we're trying to protect ourselves from disappointment or judgment,
Yeah.
but in reality, we're just holding ourselves back.
And then there's the whole instant gratification thing. It's like our brains are wired to go for what feels good in the moment, even if it sabotages our long-term goals.
Yeah, it's tough to resist that immediate reward, even when we know it's not the best choice in the long run. So how do we break free from this later trap? Twisty has some interesting ideas about that.
He does. He talks about this strategy of setting ridiculously tiny goals. It's about breaking down those big, overwhelming goals into mini steps that are so easy you can't say no.
So instead of aiming to write a whole book, it's more like, I'm going to write for 5 minutes today.
Exactly. 5 minutes feels way less daunting than an entire novel.
Right. And the cool thing is, once you start taking those small actions, you start building momentum.
It's like a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step or, 5 minutes of writing.
Precisely. Each tiny step is a win. And those little victories create a sense of accomplishment that motivates you to keep going.
I can see how this would be particularly helpful for things we've been avoiding for a long time. Those things can feel so huge and overwhelming that we just shut down and do nothing.
Absolutely. The point is to make the starting point so ridiculously easy that you overcome that initial resistance, that inertia. Instead of an hour at the gym, it's 5 minutes of stretching. Instead of cleaning the whole house, it's just clearing off one counter.
So it's less about being perfect right away and more about building that habit of taking action consistently.
Exactly. Consistency is key. It's those tiny actions repeated over time that really make a difference.
This is making me think differently about all those someday goals I have. Maybe someday doesn't have to be so far off after all.
And that's the whole point, right? To empower ourselves to start taking action today, no matter how small.
So to wrap things up, I think the big takeaway here is that later can be a dangerous illusion.
It can.
We might think we're just delaying things, but often we're actually letting go of opportunities and dreams.
But the good news is that we have the power to change that. By setting ridiculously tiny goals and focusing on consistency, we can start moving towards those things we've been putting off.
Exactly. So what's one tiny step you can take today to get closer to a goal you've been putting off? Maybe it's 5 minutes of writing, a quick walk around the block, or even just making a list of things you want to achieve.
Remember, even the smallest action can set big things in motion.
Thanks for joining us for another deep dive. We'll catch you next time.
See you then.